right, well, we are going to get started. Good evening. I am Brennan Barnard. I'm the Director of College Counseling at Dairyfield School and at Conn Lab High School and in California, and also the Program Advisor for the Making Caring Common project at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And with me tonight is Diane Campbell. And Diane, I will let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Diane Campbell. I'm in Colorado at Liberty Common High School as the Director of College Counseling, and also founder and owner of Campbell College Consulting, and also co-director for Colorado Council, which is a workshop for school counselors here in Colorado. So thanks for joining us tonight.
So we are going to be your guides, your instructors, your Sherpas at time through this experience this fall, and we'll be having a series of seminars, and we'll talk about kind of the flow of those a little later. This is just an example of what we're going to be covering tonight. It looks like there's a lot there, but we're going to really work to keep these to 15 minutes of presentation, and then open it up to questions at the end using the Q&A. You'll see some links in the chat as we go, and you'll be able to follow along and maybe copy those and paste them. We'll also have a list of the links that will go to your counselors, and we'll also post at the end. So this is really meant as an opportunity for students. We're going to have a separate one for parents that happens once a month. And so this is really intended for students, and it is to complement everything that's happening at your school. So this is for the College Guidance Network, Lighthouse Schools, for schools in the network. And those are all over the country, in California and Colorado and Massachusetts and everywhere in between. So we're excited to be on this journey with you this fall, and hopefully we'll get into some great issues and kind of unpack things as we go. So with that said, just want to give a kind of overview of the timeline, and for some of you this will look familiar, and this is really just kind of an overview of what kind of high level what you need to be thinking about as you move through the fall. Right now in September, you really should, as school has started, be getting in to meet one-on-one with your counselor, your college counselor, setting up an appointment. Every school has a different method for doing that, but reach out to your counselor and set up a meeting. This is also, if you haven't done teacher recommendations, this is the perfect time to be reaching out to teachers who taught you last year or this year, who are going to be teaching you, and requesting a recommendation. And again, each school has a different process for doing this if you're using Naviance or Score or another platform. So those really should be done now to give the teachers enough leeway and kind of a runway to get those done in time. A lot of you are already working on essays, but this is a really good time to jump in with both feet and get those drafts done and start revising them and sharing them with peers and with teacher, and starting to get some feedback, and also filling out the Common App. The October piece is things you can do now as well, in terms of doing college visits on the weekend, or if you have a long weekend, do some college visits. You should be really reaching out to colleges on your list. If you know you have colleges on your list and that do interviews, most of them are doing virtual interviews this year. If they do interviews, you should absolutely take advantage of that opportunity. And usually you can just go to the visit or apply site on their website, on the college's website, and it has links to schedule those. So kind of any school that's on your list, you really should be doing the research to figure out what they offer. As you get into October, you really want to keep maybe a spreadsheet or something, whatever works best for you. But a list of what the different aspects of the application that you need to get done are, whether it's supplemental essays, whether it's if they require test scores or certain recommendations, a peer recommendation, something like that. Start a list for yourself or a spreadsheet where you can keep all that straight, and deadlines and dates and all that kind of thing, so you can check things off as you go. And then in October, the financial aid forms will become available, and you can start filling those out. Some schools have early action deadlines of 10/15. So some of the bigger state schools like UNC and UVA and some other schools have deadlines in October. So really be aware of those if they have early action deadlines. And then as you get into November, a lot of schools have either early decision or early action at deadlines on November 1st or November 15th, and then priority deadlines for some of the bigger state schools like Penn State and University of California. And then, still others have applications not due until December 1st or the 15th or January 1st. So just be really clear for yourself and with your counselor about when you plan to apply and when those dates are. So anything to add to the timeline, Diane?
I was just going to say, committing yourself to an hour to a week is really what you need to be doing as a senior. Just looking at the snapshot of it's every month is a little bit that you need to be working on and just breaking it down, not all at once. So this timeline's great, just to kind of see what you need to be doing now and what you need to look forward to.
Right, and some schools will be on rolling admission, and so some schools have opened their application already for students to apply. You don't need, that doesn't mean you need to rush right out and apply, but there is that option, and so again, knowing what each policy is really important.
Yeah.
So demonstrating interest. So what is demonstrated interest? And you might hear this being called a bunch of different things. You might hear it being called demonstrated engagement or demonstrated knowledge. Basically, demonstrated interest is showing a school that you have done thoughtful research and that you are interested in their school. And why does that matter? Because they want to admit students who want to come to their school, right? And the more students they admit who accept their offer, their what's called yield, makes them look more competitive, right? And they also want to have people on their campus that are really excited to be there. So some schools will weigh demonstrated interest in admission in their admission review. So they'll factor in, and it was just put in the chat. There's a list of schools that a counselor has started that factor in demonstrated interest, and you can go and look and see if some of the schools that you're interested are on there. And it changes all the time. So even just today, Wash U and St. Louis sent out a message to counselors everywhere saying that they no longer are considering demonstrated interest in their application review. So being very clear about which schools on your list do factor this in. And how do you show it, right? So you can show it by going to visit campus. Not everybody can get to campuses. You can do virtual tours and kind of register on their website. You can get on their mailing list. You can reach out to an admission officer. You can show up to their high school visit that we're going to talk about in a minute. There's all these ways to show that you are engaged with that school and that you are a viable applicant, right? The first thing, if the first thing they hear from you is your application, that's not great, right? So if Diane and I are both applying to a school that weighs demonstrated interest, and I've been engaged with them along the way and maybe talked to the mission officer and been to campus, and Diane just sends her application, they'll probably still accept Diane because she's stronger than I am. But I mean, they will look more favorably on my application, right? Because I've been engaged with them. So
I think another positive thing with that too, Brennan, as we know, is as a student, it really helps you to learn so much more about a campus. So it really gives you that, win on your side to take a deeper dive and understand that college to make sure it's a right fit for you as well.
it's a really important point. It's not
Yeah,
all about the game of
right.
being, right.
Yeah, so as seniors, sometimes we feel that we should have our list and we really need to know where we're applying, but sometimes it's okay to really still be researching and considering other schools. And college fairs are a great way, what we call it, like a college mall. It's like going to the mall. Some of your areas might have college fairs in person still, but tonight we wanted to share with you there are just incredible opportunities for virtual fairs that are ongoing. This is a great way for you as a senior to still maybe consider some schools that you hadn't considered before. Now that it's time to get serious and really think about locations that make sense for you or colleges that are affordable. So really take the time to look at some college fairs to maybe consider if you're thinking about international schools. College fairs offer colleges all over the world. So it's a great way to continue your research for some schools. So adding that to your list to do.
Yeah, and the Northeast fairs are still happening, but that could change. So stay tuned, and don't feel like you have to go to these in person. Right? Do what is best for your comfort level. And there's a guide here that we'll share with your counselor as well, which is this guide to a successful college fair about kind of how to engage and how to approach a college fair so you can get the most out of it. And that applies to online as well.
Yes. And a lot of you, depending on your high school's policies, if you're offering in-person high school visits, this is the opportunity for you to meet with an admissions counselor from a college that does come physically to your high school, at a college that you're considering of applying to. And this is a great way to meet that person that, typically when you say Brennan, it's usually the person that's going to read your application.
Right.
So it's a great way for you to meet them and ask really specific questions now that you know that's a school that you're applying to. Questions such as, I still don't know what I want to major in. So what type of resources do you offer to help me discover potential options? Or I know my GPA now, and what type of scholarships might I qualify for? So it's a great opportunity to really ask specific questions to you and what you're planning for with some of these schools. And again, just like a college fair, you might see a college coming to your high school that you maybe haven't thought of, and maybe you're considering a smaller liberal arts college. So go to maybe a visit that maybe it's not a school that you're considering, but it's a similar type of school, and you can learn more about that type of college to see if it's a good fit.
Yeah, and don't these are the folks that are going to often, like Diane said, be reading your application, and so they're going to be sitting down with your application in a few months, and they're going to remember you, right? They're going to have a face to put with a name, and they're going to say, "Oh yeah, and we had that great conversation about this." And sometimes they'll even jot down notes after their visit about people they met.
Yeah. And we know there's nothing that can take the place of setting your foot on campus if you can. So just considering the timeline of what a college visit will look like for you, don't ever feel pressured that you have to run out and fly everywhere and see a bunch of college campuses, but maybe consider if you have a campus close to you, just take the time just to visit a campus so you can really see what's going on. There's still in-person college visits for a lot of campuses, and they're still offering virtual visits. So do what fits for you. But another thing to consider too is when you are on campus, really take the time to understand that college community and that culture, and ask yourself, is this a place where I see myself meeting friends that are like me? And do I like the vibe that's on campus? Walk around the entire campus and talk to students on campus, see what they enjoy about the campus or some of the favorite traditions. So there's a lot of great information that you can gather as a senior when you are visiting a campus, but do it in a timeline too that makes sense for you. It's certainly okay to apply to some schools, see if you're admitted, and then take that time, second semester of senior year, to then say, okay, here's a couple schools that I've been admitted to, and now maybe it's time to really go see if this is the school that I think it is, when you can set foot on campus.
Yeah, and go beyond the kind of package spiel that the admission office has. That's the kind of going rogue, right? Like,
Yes.
go sit in a coffee shop, even in the local town, and just kind of talk to people about their impressions of the school, that kind of thing.
Right.
Lots of things. So a couple things. This is the experience of applying to college is a life skill, right? It is about networking. It's about communication. It's about self-advocacy. It's about sharing the best of you with somebody else. You'll do this again in job interviews and other times in life. These are some important things to think about in terms of kind of how you approach this fall, right? Staying grounded, being aware of kind of where you are in the moment with what are you excited about? What are you hoping for? What are you feeling kind of fearful about? What's making you anxious? And connecting to the why of why you're going to college, right? Why are you applying to college? What is your kind of mission? What is your personal mission? And how does that fit with the school's mission, right? So there's a resource here that we'll send out to your counselors to kind of to take stock in your why and thinking about that. Thinking about kind of what do you need in a college? What do you want in a college? What is what is negotiable and non-negotiable? That's really important as you go through the fall. Finding joy, seeing this as an experience, not a process. This is not something you have to endure. I just need to get through the application process. I just need to make it to the other side, right? Like it's too bad if you look back on your senior fall and you say, oh, I was just surviving, right? You should be thriving. You should be in the moment. Yes, there's lots of details to get done, but your kind of communication with yourself and connection to yourself is the most important. Then also thinking about who your team is, right? Who do you need to surround yourself with to make this a successful experience? That might be family, that might be a guardian, that might be a mentor, employer, whoever it is. Think about kind of who is in your corner, who's on your team, and maybe write that down, and just people that you can come back to, whether it's to help you find joy or whether it's to help you review essays or applications, reaching out to your counselor, doing this from the very beginning and keeping it going. Also, just a note on kind of working with your parents, and we're going to talk to your parents when we meet with them later this month, but we really suggest picking a time each week when you can have a family meeting to talk about college, and stick to having the college conversation during that time and not all week long, because it's going to drive you crazy, it's going to drive them crazy if every conversation at the dinner table or on the ride to school or whatever it is turns into college. But those need to be really impactful conversations. So there's some resources here about kind of how can you make those conversations count? What are some of the kind of guidelines, some of the rules for your meetings, and what people share and who's running those meetings and all those kinds of things. So, but kind of formalize it and pick a Sunday night or some night of the week and do it for half an hour. And then communication with colleges. If you are not good about checking your email, you need to change that for the next 6 months at least, right? So colleges are going to email you. If you put your cell phone on the application or on other materials, they might text you or call you. Make sure your email address, we suggest use your school email address, but if you're not going to use your school email address, make sure your email address is not something inappropriate or is something, I'm a big stud at gmail.com, right? Like make it something that makes sense. And same thing with cell phones. If you have a message on your cell phone, you should have a message. First of all, you should put a message, a greeting on your voicemail, and make sure it's appropriate. And when they send you communication, click through, respond, engage with the admission officer. Some schools, again, back to demonstrated interest, some schools will kind of look and see how much you're responding to their emails. Are you opening them? So if it's a school on your list, you should engage with them.
Especially as a recruited athlete, make sure your cell phone message is very appropriate.
Yes. You can use the Q&A if you have questions. Okay. I don't plan on using my school email for lots of things. I have a personal email. That's fine. You can use a personal email as long as it's an appropriate email, and they do want you to respond. If it's a personal email from the admission office, you'll be able to tell. If it's a general email, kind of a blast email, push page or something like that, you don't need to respond. But the point is, whatever email you use, you need to check it. And what will they be contacting you about? They might be contacting you about once you've applied, they might be contacting you about a missed transcript or recommendation or something that's missing from your file. They might be contacting you through on email about a special program coming up, or
scholarships. Sometimes they're notifying you about scholarships.
If interviews, if they have interviews that are opening up, or they're coming to your area to do interviews, or coming to your high school, all those kind of things. Mm-hmm. There's a question here about how likely it is for colleges to accept multiple students from one school. Colleges don't have quotas. There's always that kind of fear that, like, oh, my classmate's applying and, they get better grades, or they do this, and that you should not worry about that. They're not saying, okay, we can only take three students from, X school this year. And so who's it going to be?
I mean, the main thing to keep in mind too, seniors, is just breaking it down for what works for you. Sometimes, the timeline that Brennan went through at the beginning is going to look different for you, to your best friends. So just making sure you always say, what do I need to do for my process? Keeping it individual.
And we can't express enough how important it is for you to communicate with your counselor. And we don't just say this because we're both counselors, but they are going to be your kind of biggest fans in this experience. And so you need to keep them in the loop in terms of when you're applying, when they ask you to fill out forms, or they ask you to do something in SCORE or Naviance or whatever system you're using. Make sure you're responding to those and they're not chasing you down, because depending on what school you're at, they might have a lot of students they're working with, and so you have to help them help you.
Mm-hmm. And don't feel that you're supposed to know everything in this process. Counselors know that you might ask anything, and that's so important for you to feel that you have that freedom to ask whatever's on your mind.
What is the recommended number of colleges we should apply to? It's going to vary. It's the perennial answer in college admission. It depends, right? So some students will apply to one college because they're applying early decision and they get in and that's it. We usually say, 6 to 9, maybe one or like 2 or 3 reach schools that you're kind of below the profile of admitted students there. And then 1 or 2 schools that you feel are pretty likely that you'll be admitted because you're well above their profile. And just coming back to the demonstrated interest piece, with the likely schools, the schools that you feel pretty confident you'll get into, you still need to engage with them, right? Because sometimes schools that you are very qualified to get into, will not accept students because they say, oh, well, we're clearly their safety school, right? And so they're not gonna choose us. So why should we admit them? So one or two likely schools, and then four, five, 3, 4, 5 in the middle, where it's kind of 50-50. And for students who financial aid is a big issue and it's going to be an important part of their decision, they might apply to more because they need to know that they're going to have many options. They need to weigh different financial packages. Again, work with your counselor based on your specific experience and your circumstances to kind of hone that number. Have a wonderful week and a productive week, and also make some time to enjoy being a senior and all that comes with
Yes,
it. So,
exciting year.
yeah. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.